Alright, everybody. Today we're going to be drawing spheres. So here's what we're going to do to start. I'm going to have you divide your paper in half this way. And then divide the top half into two halves. So you should have three sections. Start up there. Alright, so today we're going to draw spheres. A sphere is like a three-dimensional circle, like a globe or an orb, right? So, one of the cool things about spheres is they're going to look the same from any angle, at least their profile. Will always be a circle, okay? So no matter what angle we're looking at it from, we're going to see a circle for the profile. So we're going to start by drawing a circle. So we can kind of sketch this in, alright? So we sketch lightly just to plan it out. After we've got kind of a nice looking circle, we can come back in and do a darker contour line.
How are your circles so quick?
Thanks for saying that. I feel like they're so bad. Alright, so then we got our contour line. So now all we have to do to make it look three-dimensional is shade it. So there's two main techniques that we use for making things look three-dimensional. And those are shading and perspective. So when we did the boxes, we were using perspective. We were drawing the sides and the top of the box. And it was what was called intuitive perspective, but it was perspective to make it look 3D. We also shaded those. So same sort of idea here. Shading the sphere is going to be a little different though. It's a little more challenging. So when we shade the sphere, we're basically going to figure out where the light's hitting it most directly. And that's going to sort of be our highlight. And then we want kind of concentric rings of tone going around it. Okay, so basically this is going to be light. It's going to be a little darker, and dark. Okay, then we can shade that in. When we shade, we might think about using strokes that form cross contours. So I go dark there. I go kind of medium here. I agree. And then a light here, but I still want to tone a little bit. Okay, so when we have a sphere like this, we want to have what's called a gradient, which means that we have a gradual transition from light to dark. We don't want to see the areas where it stops being medium light and gets into medium, and stops being medium and gets into the medium dark. We want those to blend together and transition as smoothly as possible. So I'm going to go back in and try to make those transitions a little more subtle. I have a couple of ways I can do this. I can kind of lightly build up more pigment. Which I'm doing right now, right? I can also erase. So I can kind of erase out my highlight, and then I can sort of erase really gently. And then to blend it together even more, I can use my finger if I want. Or tissue or blending stump. If I don't like using my finger. And then I should have a pretty nice looking sphere. I might come in here and darken this edge that's furthest away from the light even more.
We're going to head back. Don't mark Chris and John absent.
Okay. So that cast shadow is going to sneak all the way underneath the sphere, kind of here, and it's going to come back this way. It's going to make kind of a circular shape. Something like that. Okay. Might sneak back in here and make this a little darker, separate those. All right. So there's our basic sphere. Yeah? All right, so yeah, try to get that to that point there. Okay, can you do my paper tonight? Yeah. Can you go out and take all the sticky notes off of the display case and just put them in a big stack for me? All right, so we want to get a good range of values on this. So I'm going to suggest that you try to have one area farthest away from the light where you really go pretty dark, okay? So you have that dark point. The more of a range of values you have, the more dramatic you're going to be able to make your lighting look. So for our next one, we're just going to do two that are overlapping each other. See, now that you complimented them, I can't draw them good anymore. Alright, so I have one here. And I'm going to move up a little bit on my paper. And a little to the left and draw one behind. Okay. So I'm going to erase this out because I can't see back there. So this time I'm going to do things a little bit different. I'm going to make the light source coming from over here. Like if we have a light over here. Okay, so the shadow is going to be going this way. So, if I look around me, right? No, let's say this differently. So normally when we draw something, we draw it starting when we're very small by making lines for the important edges, right? We make those contour lines. And that's kind of the natural way that we draw and represent things in the world. But if you look at the world around you, most of those things don't actually have like dark black lines around them, right? So it's an artificial construct that we use to represent things, but it's not really the way things look. So I'm going to try this time to draw my spheres without using those dark contour lines. All right, so this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to look at my light source here, my highlight. Oh, and if you want to get a complete range of values, one of the tools that can be really useful for you is one of these blue pencils. These are in the graphite kits. These are 4Bs instead of number 2 pencils. And what that means is they're softer and they draw darker because they're softer. More of the graphite comes off when you push. So I'm going to start, that's going to be my highlight, and then it's going to get a little bit softer here, or darker here, and dark at the bottom. I mean, I guess that probably. All right. I'm going to try to do this without my contour lines this time. So trying to draw things without using contour lines is a really good exercise for your shading. It's also something you have to get like pretty good at, I think, before you can paint well. So if your goal is to learn how to paint in here, then this would be a good thing to start practicing. Okay. So I have my dark area farthest away from the light. Gonna get a little lighter. Probably go a little darker than that here. Even lighter still. Even lighter. and highlight up here. I'm going to get rid of that contour line. So one of the tricks that'll help you with removing those contour lines is if you want to define that edge, you need some contrast, right? So I'm going to actually kind of shade my background a little bit. And then just the difference in value will define the edge of that sphere. I might come in and erase. Pull some highlight down, soften this line up, soften this line up. Blend these in. Same sort of idea over here. I'm going to have a highlight up top. Facing that light source. Maybe a little better. It's going to get darker, darker, darker. Real dark on bottom. Use some kind of cross contour strokes. Shade some of this. Then just get darker and darker and darker as I move down. I'm going to soften this up because I can still see those contours. I want to get rid of them. Reset my highlight. Blend these a little bit. I want to think about my cast shadows. Coming this way. And this way. Alright, so now we got like a nice smooth drawing. This really smooth rendering. Okay. Does that make sense? cast shadow. So cast shadow is going to be kind of the same shape as this one. It's going to be stretched out. The center of it should kind of go at that angle. This way. How's it going? What's that?
Oh, so you know those cliche things you listed, right?
Yeah.
I might as well tell you a thing, maybe you listed or not. But you know, it's you said furries, but I don't think you listed this. So like a person draws like a human character, right?
Uh-huh.
And they put like animal features on like cat ears or something.
Uh-huh.
Shouldn't that be? Is that a cliche listed?
I don't think I listed it, but probably kind of cliche here.
There we go.
I think
No,
maybe I put like anthropomorphic animals, maybe as a general sort of thing.
Time to draw Garfield evil.
Wait, what? No, you're supposed to.
Silence, liberal. I am here to draw whenever I want to.
But we're drawing spheres.
I am literally Jesus. I can do it. I can do anything.
Albert but my best friend and
Alright, everybody looks like they've got that. Let's do the next one. So next one we're going to do a set of overlapping spheres, and we're going to practice drawing them in different ways. Okay? So I can do smooth shading like this, with or without a contour line, right? But there's different ways to draw, right? So part of this is about finding a way to draw that's interesting. And we do want to oftentimes make the things look as realistic as possible. And that can be an interesting way to draw. But sometimes that's not maybe the most interesting choice possible. So we're going to play around with like some different textures and different marks we can use for shading. So let's start with one sphere in the center here. I'm going to kind of show you how to maybe incorporate texture into this. So I want to make a furry ball. So instead of drawing my contour line around it this time, I'm going to draw some little kind of broken up fuzz lines. Okay, so I've got my like fuzz lines going now, kind of defining the edge. Okay, so figure out where my shadow is going to go. Do something kind of like this. So I can also use the same marks to kind of shade. Okay, so I want to think about this like I'm doing hatching or cross hatching. So the more marks I have, the darker they are, the more shadow we're going to have in that area. So if I want to kind of make marks like this to make it fuzzy, I just kind of lighten them up and maybe spread them out as I get closer to that highlight area. The highlight area is going to be like right here-ish. Okay, so maybe as I move away from that, I start lightening them up. So I can get that same shading effect and kind of that three-dimensional feel to it while I'm applying the texture. So that's a cool way to make things 3D, shade things, and apply texture all at the same time. And it might be a good way for you to draw certain things sometimes, right? So other methods we might use for drawing these. Let's see. Highlight's going to be kind of here, right? Bless you. We can use hatching and cross hatching. So if we're doing our hatching, we go real thick in this area. Start to spread them out a little more. I'm going to erase it out right here. So if we're drawing in two directions, meaning we're drawing by making things darker but also lighter, the eraser becomes a really good tool. I can actually kind of just hatch this whole thing if I feel like it, and then just kind of erase my highlight out. That's a perfectly legitimate way to do it as well. Okay. Same sort of idea. I can add, so for this one, let's do like a holographic line. So I'll start my contour line here, like away from the highlight, and then I'll kind of make it thicker as we get to the dark area. I'll just leave no contour over here. I'll just leave that contourless. That might be another way to do it. Here's my highlight. Maybe I use cross contours. Remember the cross contours? Those are the lines that curve around our subject. Maybe we have lots of cross contours down here. But as we get up to the top, we go fewer and fewer. Maybe we want to have like a nervous, cartoony energy to it, so maybe we're going to do some squiggles, okay? So here's my highlight. Maybe I just do kind of scribbly lines around it. And I gradually make them darker and tighter. What else? What else did I do on the last one? Oh yeah, that's a cool one. Maybe for my last one here, I do some stippling. So stippling's a little tricky. Stippling means making like dots. So we talked about George Seurat and pointillism, and this idea of making all these little dots. Same sort of idea here, except when we're shading with it, the way we want it to work is the more dots there are and the darker they are, the darker the shade will be. So as we get farther away from the highlight, we want to have more and more dots. Stippling is really kind of annoying and takes a long time, but it looks cool when you're done. Okay. I don't know if I want to do cast shadows for him. The cast shadow is going to come out at the same angle, right, from the bottom where it's touching. And be like this angle. But then it's going to be on this sphere, so it's going to start curving when it hits this. It'll be more like this, maybe. Cast shadows like that. Something like that. So when we do the cast shadow, the angle of the center line of the shadow wants to match the angle of the shadow we drew on the sundial here. So it should match. And then the shape of the shadow should be the same as the shape of the form. So for these ones we have kind of round ones. They might be kind of stretched out depending on how high the light source is. All right, something along those lines. Does anybody have any questions? All right, so get all of these for me. Make them look as pretty as you can. All right.
Oh, he will.
Dude, he's laughing. He did it.
Why are you so quiet, bro? Like, I never hear you talk.
No, I said hair, not hat.
Okay, so like they used to be all of us talking together, right? But now she's dancing and everybody else is now just like
Do you think this looks awful?
I'm just here. I'm turning on.
That was awful with mine.
I know. Ever since they started dating.
That's pretty good.
Awful is great.
What is it?
At least I'm honest.
He's like my afternoon
I'm
snack.
not good at drawing. I'm not very honest. I'm not an artist.
If you're not good at drawing, you're
It's fun. I'm not a good artist. It's fun. I can try and pretend to be a good artist.
Yes, that's what I want.
Aww.
See, that's what I'm good drawing.
Fake it till you make it. Until it's true.
Do it, man.